overall image is usually this sort of humanoid, really big monster with horns. So, although the images that are frequently popularized have horns that are sort of short, they actually can vary from anything from like spiraling antlers to like horns like a dragon. But I think this image in particular is the most commonly seen. And actually, there's another phrase in Japan that's used with this. It's called oni ni tanabo, which is basically the image of an oni with a spiked club, which is basically used to symbolize overkill.
KO.
Yeah.
The other thing about the oni is they have a strong association to Buddhism to a certain extent, and specifically the underworld, or the Buddhist idea of the underworld. In terms of King Enma, he always has a red and a blue ogre at his sides, and that's where George, presumably that's what George is supposed to be from Yu Yu Hakusho.
They're missing the red one.
They're missing the red one.
He's busy.
He's somewhere filing paperwork.
But the oni itself is partially because of the associations with the underworld, but just also just because of how powerful they are. The sort of face of an oni is sort of used in architecture all over Japan because it's believed that it's fearsome enough that it'll scare away lesser spirits that might do harm to the building.
And even scare away storms, apparently. Okay, so perhaps one of the most famous folk tales in Japanese stories is the story of Momotaro, or the Oni slaying Peach Boy. And the way the story starts is there's another elderly couple who have yet to have children, and they desperately want one. And while the woman is washing the laundry in the river, this gigantic peach just comes floating down the river. And so she picks it up, and she's like, where did this come from? And then they decide to cut it open. And when they cut it open, out pops a little boy. And they decide to name him Momotaro, or Peach Boy. But as he grew up, he grew stronger, and it was very clear that he wasn't exactly human because he was only a little boy, kind of like Superman when he was a child, and he could do all these things. And around this time, there were a bunch of Oni ogres attacking the villages and pillaging them, and so Momotaro takes it upon himself to kill all the ogres from Oni Island. And he takes with him a sword and 3 dumplings from his parents. And along the way, he meets a pheasant, a monkey, and a dog. And to each of these, he feeds one of the dumplings and gets their loyalty. And through the combined efforts of all of them, they sail to Oni Island and they defeat all the Oni. And he comes back with all this treasure, and his parents are set for life. But what's perhaps the most important about Momotaro is the fact that he comes from a peach. And this image is seen everywhere. I just saw a commercial for peach gum, where there's this peach that goes floating down. It's like, try peach gum in Japanese. And I'm like, because the peach opens and then there's a stick of gum that rises down. So, perhaps most importantly is that image than really the story overall. Another creature that's really interesting is the okami, the wolf. And technically speaking, there should be no wolves in Japan, especially the Honshu Island, because wolves have been extinct for quite a long time. So anyone who claims to see wolves, those are automatically considered to be highly spiritual beings because that's the only way that they could possibly have survived. So there's definitely this very strong magical spiritual connection with the image of the wolf.
In spite of the fact that the actual wolf, just
Native to the Japanese people,
was really, really small. It was like,
it's like a foot high, from like paw to ear.
Maybe
a little more than that, foot and a half.
It's really small.
Rawr.
But in spite of that, the images always make it to be incredibly majestic and large, and like in Princess Mononoke, for instance.
Right. But for this reason, that's one of the reasons why we have a lot of wolf characters in anime that are given larger than life abilities. For example, a good example would be in the game Okami. Amaterasu is represented as a wolf, a white wolf, white being a symbol for purity in Japan. Then there's also like Young Wolf's Reign, where only wolves are able to find paradise. in this post-apocalyptic world that they're living in. And also in Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, that's the reason why he turns into a wolf of all things and not a chicken.
I don't think he normally
Alright, so we're going to move from mountains to the ocean or the river, places with water. Starting with the ningyo, or essentially the mermaid. So, in stark contrast to the Western version of this, the ningyo in Japan really looks a lot more like the hoax, with sort of a monkey, carp type appearance, and it's quite small. But in spite of how it's not exactly beautiful, they do say that its scales shine like gold, and it has a voice akin to a flute. So there's a bit more romanticism there. Some of the more important parts of the ningyo in Japan are the sort of stories behind. For instance, if it washes up on the shore, then it's believed that war or a tsunami might be coming. Unless you put it back.
Unless you put it back.
Then you can avoid war. But then there's a possibility that if you eat
its flesh, then you can become immortal. So if you say yes to the war or the tsunami, and go that way.
Immortality, war, destruction, immortality. So,
yes, she is sort of a ningyo. I don't know if people remember, but there's actually a line from one of the elderly women at the home when she sees the fish with human face. And she's like, throw it back into the oceans, nobody's going to come.
So that's a direct reference.
So the superstitions are still there.
Okay, another aquatic creature that's very popular in Japanese folklore is the kappa, or the river child. And the kappa are typically small, more or less the size of a child, and their physical features tend to vary, but the one thing that always stays the same is first their size, and second, this bowl-like indentation on their head, because that's how they're able to walk on land if they have, as long as they have water in their head. On top of their head, then they can remain all-powerful. They love sumo wrestling. They love to sumo with each other, and they love to sumo with humans. That's one of the reasons why they will go on the shore at all, to test their skills against humans. But these guys, even though they're like yay tall, they're ridiculously strong. So you will never win, no matter how big you are, against a kappa, unless you get it to spill the water in its head. And if you do, then you can sort of force it to become your servant for life and all that kind of stuff. Especially if you put the water back and allow it to move, because without the water, it's paralyzed and can't do anything. It can be chewed up by dogs or whatnot. The other thing that they're most well known for is their love for cucumbers. They love these things above all else.
And it was believed actually that if you wanted to either wash your clothes or bathe in a body of water where a kappa supposedly lives, and if you carve your family name in a cucumber and throw it in, then it won't eat you.
Because otherwise, if you don't, you run the risk of being like grabbed by the kappa, pulled underwater, sort of like crocodile style, and drowned. It's for this reason, this association with cucumbers and the kappa, that's why the cucumber roll is actually called a kappa maki, kappa roll instead of a cucumber roll. Now, there's this association with the anus for the kappa. The kappa have 3, and I don't know why. But their farts are apparently toxic. But they hate human farts, apparently, so you can actually avoid an encounter with a kappa by farting at it. Before it farts you. Now, in addition to this association with the anus, there's this mythical piece of meat in the human called an anus ball. And it likes to... this no. I'm finishing that sentence. I mean, this sort of became a story because of the state of drowning victims and the bodies. Because when a victim has when they identify drowning as the cause, typically the bowels are swollen, or this area, and that would be the explanation for why this person died. It's not actually drowning, it's a kappa attack. At least during the time, that's how they explained it, because they didn't understand the physiology of a human too well. Other than that, even if it's not hungry, it likes human butts. So you actually might find a kappa in your toilet. Well, there's like river outhouses where traditional time, there's no more of these, okay? It's basically a bar over the water, and you there was another bar here, you held on and you stuck your butt out, and then you did your business into the water. But the kappa would be down there and looking up. And sometimes they try to touch, but